Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I have a very special guest. I have Christine Norton, who is the sales lead for global strategic platforms. Nearly got in trouble then. And Christine, welcome to the podcast. You're very brave. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for coming.
Thank you.
Do you want to start by
now I'm scared.
Well, most people say they're coming on. So what we're going to talk about, and we've kind of had a chat, but there's no like script or anything like that.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about what is global strategic platforms at KPMG?
Sure. So at KPMG, we have a global alliance program, and the global alliance program basically covers a lot of technology that we embed in our go-to-market offerings to our clients. So we are known for our advisory services and the technology side and the alliances side. We underpin a lot of the things that we do with technology. So helping our clients become more digital to drive better efficiencies within their organization.
Okay, and as you have that word in your name, that infamous word that people go, sales.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you feel about sales in 2023?
So I started sales in 1993. So sales in 1993, obviously way different than what it is now in 2023. Sales in 2023 means a lot different. It's a totally different animal, and how you find new clients, how you build relationships with new clients. Clients have access to a lot more data. In most cases, they know more about what you do before you even have a conversation with them. So it's a different landscape altogether.
What do you think? What do you think is the biggest challenge of that? They've got so much information. Is it just a case of everybody's trying to get at them, prospects wise?
Yeah. So you have to realize that for most, and I'm sure people listening to the podcast or watching the podcast, they've tried every possible effort to make new contacts, new client contacts, and there is more information that is available to people who are making informed decisions. They want to make sure that when they are making decisions to do business with companies, that it's not about people are buying off of emotion. They're buying off of things that are important to them. So they're looking at things like sustainability. Does the company that they do business with, does it match the business values? So it's important before they engage in any type of sales cycle that they will likely already have done the research to know that if you are the right person for them or the right organization to be working with. So when salespeople are targeting clients, I always encourage salespeople to really look at the organization that you're contacting. Don't spam them. Look at their annual report. Read what's happening in their ESG statement or in their sustainability statement. Understand what their kind of key priorities are, and because that will become that call when you do have that opportunity will become way more efficient. You become across way more intelligent and credible instead of spamming or dialing for dollars like we used to do back in 1993.
And in 1993, when you started in sales, how did you get into it? Because I mean, people will detect there's a difference in accent between you and me.
Yes.
And in the UK, I'm being very derogatory,
That's fine.
but in the UK, sales is seen as something you do because you didn't do something else. But in other countries, it's actually recognized as a skill and a talent more than it is here. Well, that's how I feel anyway. I don't know how you feel about that. How did you get into it? And what do you think of the way sales is trained, implemented, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Well, sales, I would say sales can lead you into a lot of different careers. So I started the first job that I got, I worked for I seen an advertisement at a Xerox dealership in Brooklyn, New York, and I had this interview with this gentleman named Vito. I'll leave his last name out just to protect his identity. And so I sat down with Vito. I had zero experience, but being a quick learner, and when I moved to New York, I asked him for an opportunity, and I said, "Listen, I don't have the skills that you're looking for, but I could tell you that I have drive and commitment. Give me 30 days to prove to you that I can be the best administrative assistant you've ever had." And he just looked at me and he kind of shook his head and scratched and he said, it's just an administrative assistant job. It's not, you're not interviewing for any. I'm like, no, 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 I know, but 30 days. So 30 days went by, went back into his office and I said, okay, 30 days is up. Um, how did I do? Do I still have a job? And he says, I don't have no idea what you're talking about. And I said, remember? And he says, oh, okay. Or, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, no, 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 you're fine. But while I was in that position, I was watching a lot of the other salespeople. At the time, it was all guys. So I was watching the guys, how
Mhm.
they interacted on the phone, and listening to the questions. Not that I was listening to the questions that they weren't asking, or if they were doing all
Mhm.
the talking. And so I became a quick learner, and I started to sell copiers on the phone as an administrative assistant as a sport because I was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So that's how I started, and quickly got a promotion, moved up, and went on to do other things in sales. And so sales has led me to my position within KPMG. So I would say that sales, yes, it could start that you're just very good at seeing the art of the possible and positioning something and selling it, or it could be
Mhm.
an on ramp into something much bigger. And now with everything around learning differences, I have ADHD and dyslexia. So I chose the route of not going to university. So sales, yes, that was my on ramp, but I've made something into it. I've made something come of just being a salesperson.
Mhm. And how do you find that whole, you know, it feels like when I watch on TikTok, I'm showing like I waste too much time on TikTok, but um, everybody's giving diagnosis of ADHD, and one of the
Yeah.
common things is people say is it's hard. You either have tunnel vision, and it's like relentless,
Hmm.
or you can't focus. How did that affect you when you were selling
Hmm.
to kind of do everything that you need to do to be successful in sales?
So with ADHD, you also have this amazing, ability to be able to multitask, and be able to
Mhm.
see, where things go. I'm at INTJ on the Myers Briggs, so I'm able to say and look at something and say, all right, if I'm going to go after that client, if I was that client, these are the five things that it would be important for me to hear, or at least how would I want to engage that person or have a trusted relationship with them. I use that tactic also for how I gained new customers before, things like LinkedIn were around and you were knocking on doors and dropping off flyers. Um, some of my colleagues would do the classic drop off a business card, while I went and bought a computer and learned how to design my own flyer to get clients to see me as different. So it really helped me in that sense. Um, but that's myself. But it wasn't
Mhm.
until I was 27 that I really did something about my ADHD, and that's when I started to take on more sales leadership roles. I knew that I needed, for me to go to the next level, that I was really going to need to look at what are my treatment options to make sure that that I can, really embrace the positions and not just kind of, run around and look after a million customers and go cold calling for 5 hours. It was it was different. So,
There is like, I mean, you've talked about just briefly earlier, you were talking about being more strategic and really understanding and doing your research on prospects.
mhm,
But there is this almost addictive nature to dialing for dollars, like
mhm,
a kind of feeling that you're being successful even if you're not speaking to anybody.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts on that kind of addictiveness of sales and how that
Hmm.
kind of gels
Yeah.
together with
Yeah.
what we
So
need to do?
yeah. There's different levels. There's different learning curves and different levels within sales. So you have the organizations that thrive off of they need phone calls, and so
Hmm.
they have to. It's a very different it's a very different tactic. And I think the old school
Hmm.
way that we used to do things, there was a script, then you had a list of objections, um, you practice those and you do the role plays. I think that still kind of applies, but I think people can people can see through some of that inauthentic
Hmm.
conversation, and people want to do business with people that they trust and that they can have a conversation with. So when once things go off script, they kind of panic and they start. That's when salespeople make the mistake of going
Fluff it.
directly to the product. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they fluff it. Um, the on the research, so there was the different levels. Yeah, so you have this, the phone call side, and then
Hmm.
you have a salesperson who has a territory. um,
Hmm.
and I think depending on the business that you're in, uh, being very specific about the clients that you're going for and having a very, you know specific message for them that's going to resonate with them, um,
Hmm.
that helps you get through the door. And that's why the research side is so important. So I think I talked to you about, there's a good friend of mine who has recently made the transition from being a teacher to working in sales. So he's taken a step back to be able to learn how to do software sales. And we had a conversation, and he was telling me about, there's loads of these lists, and this is not going to be unique to anyone outside of
Hmm.
where he is. They have loads of these lists, and they basically kind of sounds like kind of just go after everybody, and wasn't quite getting the kind of traction. So
Hmm.
I basically went through and said, okay, there are all these resources that you can look up. You can research about your clients. You can see what's happening in the industry that you're going after. You want the big fish. Here are the big fish, and here is where you find out who are those people within that big fish of account that you can actually speak to, and here's what's important to them. Here's where you find that information. So after a couple of weeks, he's like, you know what? I tried what you had mentioned, and I've taken that and I've made it better, and I found a way to take the lists that I have and narrow them down to the kind of the kind of contacts and the things that we talked about, and in a more automated way. And he's being way more successful, making less phone calls, but he's
Hmm.
able to get more of a hit rate because he is applying this kind of strategy behind how he goes after his clients. So I mean that's I'm not at that level where I'm making those kind of those
Hmm.
types of calls, or my sales guys and ladies are making. They're not at that level either. They're kind of making more. They have some of those warm relationships because we've had a lot of our relationships for several years in a lot of cases with KPMG.
Hmm.
So it is different. Um,
And do you think the d- I was just saying, you will be developing accounts a lot. You're
mhm,
dealing with big, huge organizations where effectively one department is like an entire company.
yeah.
Um, how or what tips can you share on how you approach that in terms of building relationships in different departments, different divisions?
Hmm.
What are some of the anchor points that you would use or tips that you would give to people looking to do that more?
Yeah. So so again, it's going to be going back to knowing your customer and spending the time to get to know the customer. So you want to, if you're working with a client and you are in an area, sometimes what I see is people they'll develop a relationship in a particular, especially if it's around software sales. They'll be kind of blocked into a certain area. Typically, it might be IT,
Mhm.
um, and they fail to develop the relationships outside of that to make progress in other areas. And so they kind of go on this hunt to try to get IT to introduce them, or try to get that group to introduce them to others. When really, it could be that there could be reasons why they may not be introducing you. So, for example, if you are selling something that could be a game changer for an organization, but there could be some disruption in the organization, sometimes talking to
Mhm.
the head of that department isn't going to get you where you need to, because there's a lot
Mhm.
on the line for them, and people are very protective of their people, and so you have to look at it from a different angle, especially if the client, if there is a long-term goal that the client wants to reach, knowing what that is and knowing who's driving that, and being able to get connected to that person, um,
Mhm.
is really important. So it is around getting to the different people within the department, but it's also what is the bigger challenge that the client's trying to reach, and how can you have a relationship, improve your value to the most senior person that's possible. It's not appropriate for everything, um, and work with them to try to achieve your sales goals. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, that's my 2 cents. I've always tried to, from a sales role, who is the person that is going to be, that's really concerned about this, and who's the person that is tasked with making the decision. So those two things, you have to have relationships with those two people, those two, those two different ends of the organization. And that senior person, whoever that might be, you may not talk to them all the time, but knowing that they are a fan of what you're doing, and what you're selling hits their goals, and that they sponsor that relationship, and that they are really, um, tasking their folks to make that change, will be really, really important for you to enable to, for you to be successful. But definitely having
Mhm.
also, lots of other connections within the organization, but knowing ultimately who that top person is important.
And so just to throw a spanner in the works, yeah.
I
Some
like
people
spanners.
watching this might go, KPMG, such
Hmm.
a big name.
Hmm.
You just mentioned the name you get into places.
Hmm.
Is
Not,
that
yeah.
as true as it sounds?
No. So yeah, so obviously we have a lot of clients that we've had for many years, but we ourselves, we are always expanding within our clients as well. And also, when you are in a type of dynamic like KPMG, it's a different type of sale as well. So, and I see this.
Mhm.
So while we have more of a team sell, so we are all selling. We're all in this, the famous picture of the rowboat, and we're all going in the same direction.
Mhm.
Um, that is our style of selling. We're together. As a matter of fact, one of our taglines is "Better Together."
Mhm.
And in a software sales, it could be that you are in a team selling environment as well, where you might have a solutions consultant, you may have your account executive, you'll have a specialist, and you may have a partner like KPMG working alongside of you. So it's a different type of sale for us, but we don't have all the clients, and we're always innovating and finding new ways that we can help our clients, especially around things like regulatory and compliance. So we're always looking to improve the offerings and things that we bring to it. So we don't have everybody. We're not in every department, but we have really long trusted relationships with a lot of our clients,
Mhm.
but
And so
not in every department.
so when you look at your kind of career journey, and you did KPMG, ServiceNow, very kind of technical products
Hmm.
and sales, how did you get from the dialing for dollars, selling photocopiers, to where you're selling very complex, some of the experts that are around you? You said you didn't go to like university or
No,
anything.
no.
How did you get there?
Yeah, sometimes I wake up and I try to figure that out myself. I'm just kidding. um, so I was having a conversation with somebody last night about this. Actually, I think that so, and it's one thing to be able to sell and know how to
Mhm,
handle an objection, but there's a couple of key fundamentals that I look for in people that I'm bringing onto the team that match mine. So I knew that I had, I was up against people who had, very, they had university degrees from prestigious schools, and that's always been my, that's been my kind of life. I also knew that in every situation that the people around me, they didn't have ADHD, they likely didn't have dyslexia, so there was a lot more that I had to prove, and also
mhm,
um, in a sales environment, and even in a consulting environment, and I think where the industry as a whole, as well as the tech industry, is trying to change. It's very normal for me to be the only female, so
mhm,
I always had something to prove, and I always felt like I had to be a step ahead of everybody else. So there was the drive aspect. So not saying, there's a limit. You say no to some things, but some things you want to, if you want to grow and you want to go forward and you want to learn new things and put yourself into a position where you can become more, lead more, innovate more, then you have to always be learning. You have to always be getting out of your comfort zone. And
mhm,
that's the position that I've always put myself in. And as a result, I have learned and I have went up through the different organizations, and I'm now very, very fortunate to be working at a company like KPMG, who's given me that opportunity. But it is all about getting out of your comfort zone, be willing to take on new things. I know that, your job title might be this, and you might be selling only this, but if you see something that is important to a client and you think it's something that you can deliver to them, um, you never know that it could be a new offering that your organization ends up selling to that company. So so when I'm bringing people on, I don't look at here's his or her resume. I look at, okay, there's their resume, but what are they like as a person? And do they have the
mhm.
drive to be able to get through some of the tough stuff, really pick things up and learn, grab things, go with it, have that kind of same entrepreneurial energy that I've seen, and I've had in my life, because that's hard to find. And when you find those type of people, you gotta give them the room to be able to learn and grow.
And you've just kind of brought this to the perfect question of, you know, you'll have different types of salespeople wanting to work for you or wanting to fill a role that you've got.
Hmm.
How do you know, or what do you look for to find the good ones? Because there's this question, isn't there? If
Hmm.
you don't know who's a good salesperson and who's just a good BSer,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
look for a good salesperson?
Um, so so it's having a conversation, and having a few conversations. So there's obviously
Mhm,
there's different organizations have a kind of protocol. Here's all the questions, and there's an interview style, and I think those things are important. But I also think that
mm,
being able to talk to them like humans,
mhm,
and really hearing what they can, what they want to do, how they want to drive things, how they work, getting to know them. I think people will tell you, if you listen, people tell you exactly, you'll hear what you need to hear without
mhm,
sometimes even asking the question. Um, and being observant about them as potential candidates. And of course, there's always I've come across sales candidates. On paper they look amazing. You talk to them, They have the most amazing use of buzzwords you've ever heard. They're strategizing, they're aligning, they're double clicking, they're, unpacking and repacking and and
Circling back
they're
and
circling back, taking things offline. Uh, you- I view that as a bit superficial, and that might be kind of how they talk. But again, it's all about learning who you are and being aware of the individuals and knowing what it's all about. Yeah. So
Mhm.
hopefully, I don't unpack anything on this. Double click any.
so right, so you said earlier sales has changed, but
Hmm.
I feel like the pandemic has changed sales as well. I mean, we've
Yes.
had this technological shift from 1993 to 2023, but it
Hmm.
feels like, you know, people are working remotely now.
Hmm.
While emails are rammed, it's very hard to track down
Hmm.
and call people.
Yep.
It's a tougher environment.
Hmm.
And it feels like if you're using LinkedIn and email and you can't get people on the phone, there's almost a little bit of like a marketing talent in there as well.
Yeah.
Some people will be doing upside down crosses at me right now, but there is an element of marketing mingled into the sales skills now. Do you
Hmm.
think?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we talked about this a couple days ago. I mean, everyone that's listening to this, if you are in you're someone, everyone that's listening to this at one point or another will have gotten a bizarre email that looks like a form email where they're trying to sell you qualified leads for
Mhm.
your I don't know, your trucking business. And you're like, wait a second. Number one, I don't buy that. That's not me. Number two, did you happen to see the kind of organization I am? That's not even my business. So that, LinkedIn, I think is a really good way to make new contacts, um, and put yourself out there as a subject matter expert or an expert in your field or knowledgeable, approachable. And the way that I've seen LinkedIn used, in the right way that has gotten
Mhm.
somebody like me to pick up the phone and call them is when they've been very specific about what it is they're contacting me. They put a sense of urgency behind what it is that they were inquiring about, and they had a credible they had a credible LinkedIn page. They looked like they understood the topic, um, and it was compelling enough because it was only 2 or 3 sentences, but it was very specific. Here's what I want to talk to you about, and I need to speak with you within a period of time so then we could move this forward. I'm summarizing, of course, but it was compelling
Yeah.
enough for me to say, holy moly, this is interesting. I'm going to give this person a call. And that's only happened once.
Mhm.
And I was pretty shocked that they were able to get me on the phone. It turns out he wasn't a very good salesperson, but he was really good at getting me to actually call him back because of his tactics. It was the kind of less is more.
Mhm. And I think a lot of what I see now is people trying to convince or qualify in an email.
Yes.
And like you'll probably have situations like this where actually you can't, there's no way to qualify in an email
No.
because it's only as you talk to somebody they go, well, this is actually the challenge or this is the challenge.
Hmm.
And I see people doing it all day long, trying to say, is this your problem? Look, we fixed it all, hoping to kind of like convince people that
Yeah.
you're incredible, so we'll have a call.
Yeah.
When actually what you said is, this looks kind of interesting. And that's
Hmm.
the kind of thought you need to leave with people.
Yeah. It's the way I talk about it is, and I attended a really good sales training a couple of years back by a company called Sales Methods. Um, they were Salesforce integration. But anyway, that's not a plug for them. But the person that was doing the training he was a trained psychologist, and it was all around the kind of human connection and the kind of idea of giving someone a gift. So that gift is you leave them, you don't take. That's the thing that salespeople sometimes kind of forget. They get on a phone, they're so
Mm.
excited, they get, someone responds to an email. Before you know it, there's like 30 questions that they want you to answer. Um, and you're taking, that we're taking from people. So you have to stop and give them something to think about. So if they say, well, I'm not ready to do this until such and such, there might be a compelling reason why they can't do it until that date. But what it is that you're selling can help them resolve that issue that they're not talking about. It's kind of this
Mm.
un uh, undisclosed need or unrecognized need. That's a perfect time for a salesperson to say, okay, I understand. It's right now is not the time for you, but what happens in 2 months when such and such happens? That's a compelling event for you. Are you ready for that?
Mm.
So it's giving them something to think about that will say, okay, yeah, maybe he's right or maybe she's right. Maybe we do need to have a chat and let's talk about it. Come in next week. So it's salespeople kind of calm down, listen to what people are saying, and practice on giving them things to think about that will make them think of you and your organization later.
Mm. And you talked about the human element of it there. Given that you are selling software technology,
Hmm.
um, you can easily fall into the trap of forgetting that you've got to convince a human, like
Hmm.
evidence of. I'll tell you a story. I was doing a workshop
Hmm.
on Wednesday, and I was talking about putting content out on LinkedIn so that people would know who you are and get a
Hmm.
flavor of who you are. And he said he puts out examples of his work all the time. And I said, why would you do that? And
Hmm.
he came back and said, because my work will show people I'm really good and they'll want to do business with me. And I was like, I don't believe it works that way. I
Hmm.
think until people see the need and get you, actually, in some cases, I'm sure all of KPMG is amazing, but
Hmm.
it's actually the connection you have with the person that can open up the opportunity. And I think a lot of people miss that and lean on the product and the tech too much.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
is that is that just a common technology sales thing, or is it?
It's it's I think it is. I think there is some element to that. But the clients that will be with you and repeat business with you, um, it will not be because you're a really good salesperson. Well, maybe you will
Mhm.
be, obviously, because they'll come back to you. But it's because you will have you will have addressed a need that they have, a very important need that they
Mhm.
have. They're making a decision. They're putting their careers on the line in a lot of cases, to make decisions around very big software acquisitions. They could be making putting their careers on the line if they are potentially causing disruption within their organization because they're going to switch from one product to another because they believe what
Mhm.
you say. So you might, if you're a really good um, if you're a really good gift of the gab and hardcore closing, you might win that deal once. But
Mhm.
if you didn't address the need and you just sold things that didn't really matter or weren't going to be used, they might not do business with you again. It might be just a one time thing. So if you
Mhm.
want to look at the long term, really that need and addressing that need and doing what's right by your client is will put more money in your pocket as a salesperson in the long run than that one time deal. And the one example I have of that, and this is when I first started in sales, there was a woman that came into our class, our onboarding class, and she gave a piece of advice to everybody. which has stuck with me throughout my professional career, which is don't think about how much money you're going to make. Think about doing the right thing for your customers and your clients, because that will lead to the money that you want to make. And so I've kind of taken that
Hmm.
as I'd rather do the right thing for a client versus sell them when I was selling, so in the selling the actual kit, um, because I knew that they would come back to me. And
Hmm.
I think sometimes salespeople kind of forget that.
So you are a huge business, yeah, mammoth business, multi sites, all that kind of stuff. And I've worked with a few businesses. One of the
Hmm.
biggest challenges, I don't know whether this is tricky for you guys. I don't even know if you could talk about it, but I'll ask the question and then you can tell me off.
Hmm.
You might have a relationship in a business with one particular business unit you have,
Hmm.
and how do you join the dots in an organization so big where a person in your office in Singapore
Hmm.
knows the person that you need to speak to? How does that work? And is it possible to join all the dots in such a big organization?
So, any organization that's multinational, large like KPMG, I think we all kind of, we all suffer from the same thing where we try to keep everybody together and we try to always communicate.
Mm.
But sometimes it doesn't happen. So we, what the methods that I try to use with amongst our team is really when we're going after a large multinational account with lots of locations, it's really important to have all of the people that are surrounding it. We talked about the team selling angle and the team aspect earlier, but to make sure that you have those people all on board, and make sure
Mhm.
that if you know that there are these locations, that you contact them. So you make sure that, hey, we're engaging with this client. It's really important. These are the things that we're doing. We want to bring you in with us, so then we can go together as as a unit. Um, so we try to do that as much as we can. Sometimes,
Mhm.
sometimes there are circumstances where that's not the right thing, and I think that goes across for
Mhm.
anyone that's selling into a big company. But it's about the communication, and it's about keeping people together and kind of moving forward. So that's what we do. That's what we try to do our best. But people will be people, in the human side in any sales, especially salespeople are super competitive. So where
Mhm.
we within our organization, we tend to do we strive to do the right thing for the client. It's not about who's getting what cut.
Mhm.
Salespeople will be more precious about my commission. I don't want to split it with Tony or Donna over there, and they try
And
to.
who was the linchpin that got the deal over the line?
Exactly. So it's different. I think for organizations that are setting up sales teams and are building sales teams and how do they handle their accounts. I think it's really important to really look at your large account strategy and how do you
Mhm.
engage with that account, and how that account is supported, in the model. So it is a bit of a mix all over the place, according to what software organization that we're working with as partners.
Yeah, I mean, KPMG must be the size of a small country. Basically, it's huge, isn't it, as an organization?
Yeah.
So just I get all of the importance of giving value for the client. Client comes first, but can we
Mhm.
have a little bit of a cheeky sales conversation for a little
Sure.
bit,
Yeah.
right? Every person who's been in sales will have a client win or a deal that closed that they'll never forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they remember to this day. It's the one that meant something really special. Which was yours?
Mm. Um, so I would say, I probably won't use their. It was in one of my previous roles in the United States, um, and it was with, a large equipment manufacturer. It was one of my first big deals when I moved to the Washington D.C. area. And there was a client. It's well known brand. They produce lots of kind of historical documentaries, magazines, and they're based in Washington D.C. And I was always in awe with this company. My grandfather had a whole row of their magazines, and I would that was my kind of first experience with the world, is looking through these magazines. And so when I had an
Mhm.
opportunity to meet with this client, um, I was up against a lot of challenge. They were doing business already with at the time, one of my competitors. I knew that the competitor
Mhm.
had, they had the entire organization locked down with everything that they needed. Um, but I wanted to do it a little bit differently, and I was very aggressive in how I shaped the deal. I was very aggressive in terms of, you know, making sure that I was front and center. I didn't want. I knew that the competition, because they were doing business with this client for so long, might be complacent, because they just kind of expect, well,
Mhm.
they're going to do business. And I remember my then boss, saying, "Yeah, the chances of you getting this is, slim. So don't waste your time." And I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, that's a challenge for me." But I ended up winning it, and I I was so excited that that I'd won this opportunity, and it did cause a lot of cause a lot of upset at the time, because of the incumbent. The incumbent kind of protested our win. But in order for that win to count, you had everything had to be delivered and implemented by midnight. It's some kind of US role that it has to be delivered by midnight on the last day of the month. So here I was in my high heels with my customer, rolling off copiers and pushing them around this big building, because I was so grateful that I won that opportunity. It was a big win for our organization, and I'll never forget just um, kind of just being in awe that these people, they didn't know me, they didn't really do business with my company before, and they made a decision, and the decision was because they said, we bought because we liked the support that you were giving us. You weren't pushy, even though in my mind I was pushy and super aggressive.
Mhm.
You did what you had to do. You even helped us put the copiers into the copy rooms and move out the old ones. He's like, that's not something that typically a salesperson would do. But I was like, yeah, it's all part of all part of the service. Now, I might actually end up breaking a hip, or like, spraining an ankle now in my 40s. But yeah, that was my.
And so obviously, this is another story that you might tell me you can't answer, but we'll have a go. You're
Mhm,
being really good so far, actually. What's one of the not worst
mhm.
sales experiences, but one where you thought this is not going anywhere? This seems like it's going to be impossible, and suddenly surprises you and turns itself round.
Yeah. Um, so my early sales career, Brooklyn, New York. Um, and I have another story about this as well. But early story, there was a client who, he was incredibly, he had so many questions. And I remember, he was basically challenging everything that I put forward. And, um,
Mhm.
and I remember feeling really frustrated. Like, why am I wasting my time on this guy? And the more and more he asked the questions, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take time. I'm going to listen. I'm going to answer the questions. And it took us about 3 weeks to a month, just to get over the line on buying a copier. But it turns out that not only did I sell that one, but he was making decisions for a much bigger organization. And when he was asking me all these questions, he couldn't share with me at the time, like, why he was being so particular. but I felt like at that moment, well, several moments, oh geez, he's on the phone again. Why am I doing this? This guy is not going to buy anything. He's being super annoying. But he ended up becoming one of my best customers. And he was my most
Wow.
critical customer in the beginning, but ended up becoming one of my best customers.
Wow. So I'll tell you a story of mine, and maybe you can chip in on this. Maybe you've had an experience like this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a few years ago. I was asked to go pitch for some work because I'd done something similar. They'd
Mm-hmm.
seen it and said, "Would you come in?" So I went in, did the whole pitch, and then a number of people in the room were asked to leave,
Mm.
and I was like, "Okay." So I was like, "This is," and I thought, have I just like messed this whole thing up and they're kind of going to give me some feedback without other people in the, like,
Yeah.
let's be nice and say, you kind of didn't. So I'm like waiting for this.
Uh-huh.
And then they turn around and say, so how much is it? How much are we? Because I didn't talk about money at all at
Yeah.
this point. I
Yeah.
said, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. And I said the price, and this is a long time ago. And
Mm-hmm.
I said 65 grand.
Mm-hmm.
And they went, done. And I was like, oh no. I don't know whether you've ever had any experience like that, but I was like, oh no.
Like, oh no, like, oh no, what do I do? Or, oh no, is that the right price? What was the oh no for?
Yeah, like the oh no of realizing that your price that you just put in, they didn't hesitate, they didn't flinch, there was no negotiation.
Oh,
It was just like a straight done deal. And I was like,
yeah,
I should have charged more there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Turns out the incumbent was charging £250,000.
Wow, wow. Well,
Uh,
I have two stories for that.
right.
And I thought you were going to take that other story someplace else, and I was going to anyway. So the two stories. So there's one, just that oh no moment. Um, so in my early, I'm just referring back to my early sales career because that was a lot that shaped me from anyway. So we were myself, my sales manager, and there was a specialist, and this is back in when color copiers, laser color copiers were the best thing since sliced bread. Everybody was in awe. There was a taxi medallion company, and all of us went to, I called up, got an appointment, told my boss, okay, hey, we got a good lead here. He actually wants to meet today because he needs something. So we go together and we're sitting in this kind of, I don't know if you've seen the movie or the TV show Taxi. It's this kind of cramped taxi medallion company. And he's hardcore negotiating, okay, well, if your price is 60, then you got to have room. Okay. All right. So we, go in, okay. All right. All right. We could do 55. Oh yeah. No. We go back and forth. This goes on for like 3 or 4 hours. We're tired. So he tells my boss and the specialist, he said, I'm going to go have a word with Christine and I'll be back. So I'm like, okay, this is weird. We go into this back room and he says, there's the phone. I want you to call your branch director and ask him if this is the best price. So I said, okay. Call my our kind of branch director and I said, hi, it's we're here and the customer wants to know, is this the best price? And he says, yeah, that's as low as we can go. So I come out and the customer says, congratulations, you passed. And I said, no, well, what do you mean? He says, well, I was listening on the other end and I heard you talking to your branch director and you're right. You were telling the truth. You're giving the best price. So we'll buy it. Now, was that ethical? Probably not, but it was one of my most kind of, oh dear, kind of moments in front of a client. Um, but just the point around the value. Um, so one of the important things that when we're selling, I think salespeople and this goes across any organization that is putting a product or a service forward, people sometimes forget the value that their company can bring. And they look at the
Mhm.
different organizations that they're selling against. And sometimes there are organizations that can afford to have very aggressive pricing, but they may not provide the same level of service. But
Mhm.
sometimes people say, well, I need to apply that same pricing that my competitor who is offering it at 50% less. But then they end up making that client ends up making, regretting what they've done because they're not getting the kind of optimal. So going back to my point that I made earlier around knowing your customer, researching who you are engaging with, things that are important to them, making sure that when you are every step of the way, when you're having those discussions, that you're putting value into why they're doing business with your company, specifically why they should be doing business with your company and why your product or your offering is superior over others is really important, because you can ask. If they see the value in what you're doing, they'll be happy to give that money because they'll know that they're making the decision off of people that are going to be there when times get tough,
Mhm.
and that that they're getting their money's worth, and it's money well spent. Um,
Yeah.
don't lower your standards because you think that that's what the customer wants to hear. You don't know what they want to hear. Sell yourself on your value.
And when you started out in sales, and you started out in an admin assistant, was it the first one? Administrative assistant, was it? I can't
Yes,
remember what you said
yeah, I was
earlier.
it's an executive assistant.
Yeah, executive assistant. Sorry.
Mhm.
How did you, when you're first starting out, you're selling things sometimes that are more valuable than your frame of reference for money,
Mhm.
and sometimes, like, I know I struggled with this. I'm from quite working class background, so
Mhm.
my
Same, by the way.
family grew up on council estate, all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And then suddenly you start selling things where you realize that's a lot of money.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's more than you've earned, it's more than you understand.
Mhm.
How did you get through that in terms of the practicalities of? 'Cause the reason I'm asking this question
Mhm.
is there'll be lots of business owners and
Mhm.
people who sell their either creative or expertise in some way,
Yeah.
and they might struggle with what you've just said about the value piece because their frame of reference is their background.
Yep.
How did you deal with that?
Um, so at the time when I started selling, and I gave that example of where I was, I had a challenge to try to sell copiers when the sales guys were out. Um, for me at the time, I didn't really have a reference because
Mhm.
I hadn't seen that amount of money. I was a young person. I barely made, I barely made money. I was, my at the time when I was 19, it was, my lunch was less than my whole eating basically was like less than $5 a day because that I had to have money for rent left over. Um, so for me, it was about the challenge initially, and it was kind of that adrenaline, and maybe that's where the ADHD picks
Mhm.
in. It was the adrenaline of, okay, I've never met this person. I've just went through a whole pitch, and they're saying, "Come over, bring the order over," and wow, that felt right. So it was a win. I liked the feeling of that win. It
Mhm.
wasn't until I I would say I had my first two kids and I was going back to work that I started to get that kind of frame of reference for things that I was selling, in the value of those things. Because again, it's just numbers. It was for me, it was just numbers. There was never like a hard change of cash. It was always, credit card or something, or a bill,
Mhm.
a PO. It wasn't until I went back to work and I went to do sales because I'm like, I'm really good at it and I'll make a lot of money. And I remember listening to the head of our sales group. He was on the phone with somebody in New York City. And I heard him on speakerphone, and he says, "Well, how's Christine doing? How's she working out?" And he says, "Oh, well, she's good. She's got great drive, but she had a little issue of with her discount." And I was like, "Oh shit, what does that mean?" Sorry, I shouldn't probably swear. So I started feeling like, what did I do? My discount.
Mm.
Um, Knowing that, now knowing that the amount of money that I discounted was very little compared to what we could discount. I started making it kind of my quest to put so much, to not charge full price, or try to, I
Mm.
tried to sell myself where people were happy to give that amount of money, because
Mm.
I was so nervous about this discount thing that I didn't really understand at the time. Um, and it kind of become, for me, that became the value piece became really important. Um, but that didn't apply to every deal that I've done. But the making money on the deal was important.
But it's funny because if a lot of salespeople, if they've got that flex, you have a situation. I say a lot, but
Mhm.
I know a lot of salespeople would go the other way and
Mhm.
actually use the discount more or less as standard.
Mhm.
And many times it isn't possible. It isn't needed because the value's there.
Yeah.
And I guess in some cases it's, you get scenarios where there's budgets
Mhm.
and constraints and stuff like that, and to
Mhm.
get it through you
Yeah.
need to squeeze the price a little bit.
Yeah.
But if your default is to go to discount,
Yeah.
maybe that's a sign you don't understand the value.
Well, that's right. And also your client is going to see discount is in the buying cycle when you're talking about a lot of money. When you just throw a
Mhm.
I'm going to take I'm going to take X thousands off. Okay, well, does that mean that there's more? Maybe you should be
Mhm.
giving me more. I mean, am I paying top dollar? That starts to create a doubt in their mind. But when you start to change it up a little bit and not give them even if you're going to take money off, look at a different way. How do you frame it to your client? What service or what thing can you give to them that says, "Listen, I'm not able to match that price, but I've been able to work within my organization, and I've been able to find a way for us, while we can't discount what you're asking here, that is if they tell you, we are able to give you, I don't know, an extended warranty of, or give you X number of, solution consulting
Mhm.
hours," or it's something that's kind of investing back into them,
Yeah.
versus just going straight for the discount. Here's a couple thousand off, because it kind of cheapens the sale, and it creates doubt.
And some people take the discount off before giving them the price. And it's like, and that comes from a real vulnerability of the
It does.
person of
It
going,
does.
oh,
Yeah, I've seen that
um,
where they have where people are competing against someone that they deem as, super super cheap, and it always irritates me. It drives me crazy, because I say, why are you doing that? Like, there is a reason that, you are selling something that is top dollar. You have an amazing service, or you have an amazing software. Why are you going straight to the discount? There's a reason that the client has come to you, and that's because
mhm,
they're strongly considered, and they need to they're going to negotiate. So why would you give a price, a discount, when they haven't asked for it? Now you have nowhere to go, and
yeah.
you're not even able to kind of give them back something that, yeah, it, that drives me crazy a little bit. So that, yeah.
And I would imagine in what you do, you're very complex sales environment. It's not, here's the quote, sign and done and dusted.
Hmm.
There will be times when you're working on something for a long time. How
Hmm.
do you keep everybody motivated when it can feel like a maze?
Yeah.
How do you keep people motivated?
Yeah. And this will apply. This example will apply to anyone that works in large accounts. So it's not really specific to KPMG, but it is. It's kind of consistent in terms of the length of time that it takes. Um, within a sales cycle, there, obviously you have the win, and
Mm-hmm.
by the time you get to the win, some people think that there is this big, oh my gosh, we won, and they're high fiving each other. But actually, when you work on a big deal and you close that big deal, um, it's kind of an anticlimactic thing. It's okay. We've been working for 6 months or a year to get to this point. There's a lot of little wins that have to happen along that way to get
Mm.
to that reward. So to celebrate focus on celebrating the individual wins that will get you to the goal, because also for salespeople that are looking at these bigger sales cycles, it can be a bit daunting when you think, okay, my goal is to, this is a potential $10 million opportunity, or 200K opportunity, whatever the relative scale is for your what the company that you work for. Don't think about it as that's it over there, and I'm so excited, I'm going to try to close it in like a month. um,
Mm-hmm.
Look at it in bite sizes, and celebrate all of the small wins that get you to the big win, which is your commission check. And then that's where a lot of the work really comes in for you to potentially sell more or provide more services to
Mm.
them.
And
Mm-hmm,
the flip side of that, you invest a huge amount of time,
mm-hmm,
and then everything's going your way, and then something kicks in. There's a restructure. There's a reprioritization,
mm-hmm.
and all that work feels like, oh, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. And sometimes that does happen. um, and sometimes it's a not, we have to, you have things have to be delayed. But that's
Mm-hmm.
where we have to, salespeople really need to look at the holistic side of their pipeline, and not put too much, you know, don't don't count. I think this is a saying everywhere. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. But I mean, that is true. You know, don't put everything in
Mm.
to expecting that you're going to win that deal, and then when you don't win that deal, when you look at your pipeline and there's nothing there, um, that that's kind of your own fault. That sounds
Mm.
terrible, but your point
But
around, yeah,
I was going to say, everybody knows that saying
yes,
of don't count the chickens until they hatch.
hmm,
But I'm pretty confident this one's going to hatch.
yeah, 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 yep. That's yes, that's true. Um, when that happens, obviously it's a for a salesperson, it's really devastating. It's happened to me before,
Mm.
and I've learned a lesson in putting all my eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I learned as a salesperson is that you either have to see what is that, okay, why are you, if it's a decision to delay things, sometimes there's things that you cannot help, but sometimes there are things that it might not necessarily be um, a no, it's a delay. And
Mm-hmm.
really look at when can we re-engage, and be able and open to the client, for them to feel comfortable that they're going to come back to you when it's time, and
Mm.
not be super aggressive to try to pigeonhole them in. Or there might be incentives depending on where you're selling, that you can, if it's a financial thing that they're concerned about, they're concerned about something over the next couple of months. There's sometimes, I know, things that organizations will be able to do and offer to clients to get them over that hump. But it's also making sure that you are fulfilling your pipeline, and that you have enough pipeline to cover you in the event that something like that does happen.
Mm.
Um, and that's easier said than done. It's very hard to get a large deal, multiple large deals in a pipeline. But yeah, that's never a fun scenario.
No. So just before we kind of wrap up,
Hmm.
if somebody's, whether they're we have a lot of people who'll watch and listen to this who aren't what you'd class as natural salespeople. They don't feel like that's their thing.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them as some of the things that you've learned that they could adapt without, becoming a salesperson, or they're not really feeling that?
Yeah.
What's the word? Do you
They
get where
don't.
I'm going with
Yeah, yeah,
this?
yeah. They're not very salesy. I think, and I hear this a lot in my organization because sales within consulting, the word sales in the past has been kind of a taboo thing because I think salespeople and people who sell, they have this bad reputation of high fiving and objection
Mm,
handling and being super cheesy, and that so that is a personality of some salespeople, but the ones that are career salespeople, experienced, um, they don't consider themselves salespeople. It's about
mm,
the relationship that you develop, being able to listen. Um, Everyone is selling something, and I try to for people who say I'm not a salesperson, I say no, you are a salesperson. You are, you work within an organization that is providing services every day, even though you're not asking for an order or asking for someone to sign something for the order. You're a representation of what that company is doing. So you are
mm,
selling the organization, and they've hired you to represent them. So you are a salesperson. um, we all sell ourselves as people. So when we
mm,
go to buy a car, or when we want to have we're creating new relationships, new friendships, new romantic relationships. Um, we're selling ourselves as, why are we good friends, or why would we be a good mate, or um, we're we sell every day. So
yeah.
don't think of yourself as not a salesperson. Think about it a little bit different, that we all have something special to offer. And the difference between people who do sales for a living is, they make commissions and whatnot, and but not all salespeople are even uh, extroverts. There's a lot of introvert salespeople,
Mm.
which can oftentimes be some of the best as well because they enjoy listening. So yeah, I'm not sure if I really nailed that last one for you, but yeah, we all sell.
I guess what it is though, there's a perception that they have to be something, or you
Yes,
know,
they have to fit into like a mold.
there's yeah, and
Yeah.
there's like a series of things that I have to get them to do, and
Hmm.
I have to ask for the order and always be closing and doing all
Hmm.
this stuff, and actually they've got to find a way that's natural for them,
Yes. Yes.
because that you can't keep up.
That's right.
You learn things and you get habits as you do things, but you
Yes.
can't sit there with a tick list.
No, no, because that tick list will never go in the same direction every time. And you do have to ask for the order, but
Mhm.
you know, being confident that you've done all the things and you've provided a value, and being confident to be able to ask for the order. Sometimes it does take some people where it's unnatural to do that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but the always be closing, that kind of, yeah,
Yeah, it belongs in films, right?
yeah. Coffees for closers.
Christine, it's been awesome having you on. It's really, I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this. I might get in trouble. We might have to edit it. Um, you don't give off big consultancy vibes. You give off a really human personality. And I don't know what people might have been expecting when they see it,
Hmm.
the promo for this, and they go, I thought, like, I would have never put you in consultancy and software. I would have put you in something else. I don't know what, but you come across just very warm and friendly, and you have a personality.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll get you. So thank you so much for coming on unscripted with me. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And I know a lot of people are going to get some value from this in seeing that actually sales is a journey,
Hmm.
and where you start and where you end up.
Hmm.
Um, it can be anywhere.
Yeah.
It can be anywhere.
Yeah.
And We've both sold photocopiers for a living.
Who did you sell for?
Oh, well, I was just a reseller, so it was. We did. It. I don't know whether you know them, but they used to be. Oh, Minolta before it became
Yeah, yeah,
Konica
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Minolta,
So I sold
and
Xerox and
odd.
Canon.
So, I had this love for Minolta printers
Mm-hmm.
that were A3 wide, and you had to put the oil in them
Oh,
and all of
geez.
that stuff.
Wow.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even now, I have this little thing with printers. So
I have two in my I have two in here, and I just like looking at them. It's bizarre.
yeah,
Anyway,
once you're in print, you can't get out of it and
that's right.
stuff. Anyway, Christine, thank you so much for coming on. Really
Thank
do
you.
appreciate
Really
it.
enjoyed the
You've been
conversation, Dean.
awesome.
Thank you.
And if you want to find out more about Christine, you can find her on LinkedIn. I'll put her details all around the video so you can go and pick her brains about sales if you want to know more about what she's up to and more about selling on value. She'll hopefully be up for giving you some more tips. So thank you again, Christine.